am Negan.
I am Negan.
Hey, what's up, people? Welcome to another episode of I Am Negan, a TWD Universe podcast. My name is Adam Vale. I'm an editor over at the Koalition.com, and tonight I'm joined by Editor-in-Chief Richard Bailey Jr. What's up, Rich?
What's up, Adam? What's up, listeners and viewers?
Yeah, this is for Fear the Walking Dead, Season 7, Episode 7, The Portrait. So before we jump into it, quick thank you to everyone who's following us over on Spotify and iTunes, of course on YouTube, just all over. Doesn't matter. It's just great. Not just for the show, but just for the fact that people are still interested in the Walking Dead universe, especially Fear, which is the first spin-off and still the better one, especially if we're comparing it against World Beyond, which thank God is coming to an end soon. We only got, 2 more episodes? Right, I think episode 9 is already out on AMC Plus, just like this episode. So if you have not watched this episode, you could jump over to AMC Plus, and there you go. You could watch it. If not, you could wait till Sunday and watch it when it airs on TV. But right now it is available there, so just be warned, this is a spoiler cast. We're going to discuss everything, pretty much, in detail, and give our thoughts on this episode. So just giving you a heads up. All right, so 3, 2, 1... beep. All right. This episode, man, I don't know. I'm on the fence with this one. I'm on the fence because it did have some good qualities to it that progressed the story, and that's my main issue with any show. I don't like episodes that are just filler. That was my main issue with Lost. Remember Lost? I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. I loved Lost, but then there were so many episodes where they were just filler. It was just back ends, of what happened to certain characters before, and some of them I cared about, some I didn't. And I'm like, wow, this whole episode is dedicated to this particular character and what he did before he got on the flight? Oh, come on. And then it continued on. That was the same thing with Arrow. I used to watch Arrow. I was like, oh, wow, this is great, until like season 3 or 4 when he left the island and they're still doing the backtracks with him. And I was it ruins it. It's like at some point you just have to push forward. And so with this episode, it was a lot of that. We were just pushing forward. And that's what I love about it, that it's not doing all of that backtracking. But some of the forward motion makes no sense. This whole thing with Strand, how did he come to power? How did he get to the point that he can manipulate so many people? We've talked about this before, about the timing. There really is no timing. And if we look at what's going on with Dwight and Sherry, it's only been, they first said it was, a few days from when everything had happened when they went out. But then their events and the things that are taking place, where they're known as the Riders, whatever. What was the name of their little group name? Whatever.
The Dark Horses.
The Dark Horses. So they already had a reputation, which means that it's been longer than that.
Yeah.
And then with June and Dwight Sr., when they were checking off, clearly a lot of time has been passing. So but when you look at the baby still looks little. Compared to last season, hasn't really changed. She's crawling and all, but from the amount of time that they're making it seem, it's like almost a year. So the baby should be walking or close to it. I have 2 kids. I know it should be toddler form, but it's just a lot of inconsistencies with the way they're portraying all this different stories. Like they're trying to stick them all together, but at the same time, a lot of things aren't sticking together well, timeline wise. And that's why I bring that up now, because this whole episode is about Strand, and we see that he has this policy, which is great to see. It was cool because when we first saw the phone booth that was out in I want to say it doesn't really give you a good representation of how far, but it's further out from where the tower is and from where the walkers don't see anyone there, or else they would start walking over and try to bite them. And they pick up the phone, and then that's the one that we saw Sarah use the phone to call in and find out about her brother. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we see that there is a process that people call in, they approach it, they call in, and then they'll hand the phone over to Strand, and then he just pretty much does a quick interview, Right? It says, what's your skills? What were you doing out there this whole time? That type of thing.
Yep.
And he's doing this at the same time he's getting, which is the name of the episode, a portrait done. He has a painter and she's doing a portrait. And he's like, I want you to see the real me. You have to put the real me. And right there, right off the bat, I knew exactly what he was saying. That first off, this was not going to be what he thinks it's going to be. Because he thinks he's a savior. He thinks he's like this really good guy. But he's not. And the picture, eventually, as we see, is going to be a very stern look of him. And he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. Like a dictator. Yep. And he doesn't like that. That's not how he sees himself. He sees himself like he's doing the right thing for everyone. These are his people. He's going to protect, right? That's what he keeps telling Morgan. I'm doing what you couldn't do. I'm protecting. Yeah, but you're running with an iron fist right now. And a lot of dictators, or even politicians that leaned closer toward dictatorship, it wasn't intentional. It just happened. Because eventually, when you want to control, what do you have to do? You have to put more restrictions. And you put more restrictions, and next you know, people have to go to sleep at a certain time. There's curfews. There's all kinds of stuff. Well, I want to control crime. And crime usually happens 3, 4, 5 in the morning. So that's why I put a curfew. Yeah, but where's the freedom? What if people work at night and they have to walk the streets to get to place to place? Now they're getting harassed by the police. And now you have to walk with papers. Oh, papers. Okay, we're in that situation. I'm going on a rant. But the whole thing is, we see that he's interrogating all these people. Well, not interrogating, quick interviews. And one of them calls in, and what was it? Arnold. So his name is Arnold, and he tries to go by, just run down his skills, whatever. But Strand doesn't want to hear it. Doesn't care. It's like, no, you're not what we're looking for. We already have somebody. We hear other people calling, but I can do this. I mean, he doesn't care. He hangs up on them. So before I go further, what did you think of that? That whole, this is the process? Because I didn't, we had talked about it before. It's like, were people just approaching? How were they letting them in? Now we see they weren't coming to the front door. They were going to that phone booth and just calling in and saying, hey, this is what I can do. This is what I can offer, my skills. Can I come in? What did you think of that?
Oh, yeah, I think they needed to show that process. Just to give you a better idea of how Strand is running things at the tower. I did have some issues that we'll get into a little bit later in regards to that process. But overall, I thought it was good to establish that. And everything you said about Strand and the representation of the portrait, yeah, that's right on the money. I had the exact same thought, as that's exactly what his goal was with that particular process. But yeah, I think they did need to show how they were deciding who to turn away and who to actually keep.
Yeah, I mean, even with the portrait situation, there was a little hand-holding on the writing right there, because they didn't have to have him say that one line of, no, show the real me. Well, what does that mean? You mean on how you see yourself? See, now, it would be great if he didn't say that line. And then we see the portrait, and then we see those little flashes that he starts having, and then he gets upset and, of course, gets rid of it. Then the viewer will be like, oh, this is why. Because he thinks he's a savior. He thinks he's a good guy. And this makes him look very strict, very much like a dictator, and that's not what he wants.
Yeah, but even though he's dressed like a dictator.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Oh, my outfit gotta go. It's gotta go. I can't do it. I can't look at it with a straight face. I feel like laughing. It just throws me off. Yeah, it's just. Oh, I wish others would just constantly point out, like, we didn't hear that with June or JD Senior. Like, what are you wearing? What is this? That would have been great. Just as someone other than us just acknowledge that this is a goofy outfit. But his little henchman buddy shows up and says, all right, well, we got another one. I was like, yeah, no more for today. I'm done. He's like, no. You're going to want to see this one. You got to come see this one. And sure enough, and this was the hint from the last episode, we see Morgan with Mo, holding Mo. And she's crying. And as they hinted in the trailer, she's sick. Something's wrong. And he shows up and he says, yeah, hey, I know we have issues. This is not about that. This is about the baby. I need June to take a look at the baby. Something might be wrong. It's like, okay. All right. So he sort of respects that. He's like, all right, well, I'll let you win just for this. And we find out that there's a main as an alternative motive here. Because his whole thing is, once June, and this is the kicker with all this. Yeah, because, I mean, there's some key information that happens here. There's a lot of key information that's what's happening here. Some of it doesn't really get addressed. It's just there. For example, once Morgan does get in, and he sees that June's there, and they embrace, and they start talking the whole thing. And it's like, how is everything? How you doing? How's everything here? And he's like, oh, it's great. It's good. And it's like, okay, but then we find out that Sarah's brother we see him on camera.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's there on the roof. He's like scoping out because he sees something off in the distance because there's some people also at the phone booth. But I'm just jumping around here just because to point out some of the key things that we see that they don't really go into. And, or like when Morgan starts talking about, it's like, oh, why are you here? It's like, well, do you have something better? And it's true. Because Morgan doesn't have anything better. And that was something Strand had pointed out during this when he was asking June, how is everything? And he's like, oh, yeah, he's just trying to see if you really like it here. If this is where you want to be. And I don't know if anyone wants to be there, but it looks pretty good. The setup looks pretty good. I mean, they're producing food. I guess they're catching rainwater. Maybe there's still some plumbing. He did mention later on in the episode talking about tunnels. Right? He was like, oh, the tunnels are blocked. What tunnels? Is this how they're getting in and out of the place? Because we've talked about this in the other episodes. Like, how are they getting out without bumping into all these walkers? It's not like they can just open up a door and shoo them to the side. Like, make way. And then on their way back, what do? You have to constantly fight your way back. So it sounds like there are tunnels. But we'll get to that. So they have their little conversation. The June is taking a look at the baby. Morgan has a one-on-one with Strand. They're sharing a drink. And this is where it gets fun. And this is what I'm saying. I was like, there was a hit or miss with this episode. This part was the hit. And this is it's actually that. Because a body flies through the window, a walker. They have, these dudes have a damn slingshot, a catapult. And they're catapulting infected walkers, like contaminated walkers from the nuke. Or also with explosives. I think these just had the explosives, but that's amazing. That's a first that I've seen, and it was awesome. What did you think of that? A catapult. We see a catapult walker flying right through the window, right there next to the table. It's like, what is this? And he's like, oh, just throw it out. It's got a bomb. Throw it out.
Oh yeah, that was a very cool visual to see that. And I did see, they had the commentary after the episode, and they said, yeah, that's something that they wanted to do for quite some time. So I thought it was great to see it from a visual standpoint because, again, Strand and the company inside their tower, I know everybody feels as though they are safe. They don't have to ever worry about a situation, and that right there puts them in an uncomfortable place because now you have a walker getting thrown through the window that can also still attack you. So I thought it was a good idea to put that in here for sure.
That was awesome. It would have been great if there was multiple catapults and we would have had a shot from the outside just showing all these walkers just flying. Because they said, because a lot of this happened, off camera, they're just saying, it's like, oh, there was some that flew through the 3rd floor and the 4th floor, and some even made it toward the roof.
Yeah.
And that's when we see Wendell, I think it's Wendell. We see him and he's like, oh yeah, there's a guy, he's at the phone booth and he's there and he's calling in. And then sure enough, and the henchman comes over, he's like, yeah, the guy says he spoke to you. You know him. It's like, what? And he picks up and you hear the voice and it's Arnold, and Strand again full of himself. It's like, my instincts were right. I knew it. I should have met you. And, it's like, and I was like, yeah, whatever. But it doesn't matter now because now we're gonna take over. We're coming in, and so he starts talking about his plans. Pretty much, he wants in. He's gonna get in anyway, and he's gonna take him down. And even before this, if I remember, it was before or after, it was somewhere in between. But this is the job that Strand was going to offer to Morgan was pretty much this, and I'll fix up your kid here, but I need you to go find, what's her name? I'm blanking.
Alicia.
I need you to go find Alicia. And that's what his whole point is here. Like, so he can't find it. I mean, his buddies can find the submarine. His buddies can track everyone else. They can set traps for Dwight and all of them, but they can't find a group of people. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you're finding smaller pockets. Usually, larger groups are easy to see. If there's a group party somewhere, right, you could easily hear people talking, whatever it is, right, and follow their trail. It's harder to find one or two people, but he said, well, his people were able to do that, but they can't find where Alicia is, whatever. But that's where his main goal was with Morgan. But then now we see that there's a new bad guy, and again, this leads up to some of my issues with this episode with this group, because as we get to the point where they're trying to strategize, because now Morgan's like, you need my help. And he's like, I don't need anything from you, and this and this and this and that. And we also see that he gets poisoned. Strand is poisoned. He starts coughing and the whole thing. And then he's like, oh, one of you guys did it. Somebody here poisoned me. And I'm like, oh, wow, this would be great. Are they going to kill him off? Is this how it happens? He dies because he gets poisoned. Somebody poisoned him. And he's pointing his sword around. It's kind of funny, you know. It's like, oh, who did it? You did it. You did it. You know, I've been with you from the beginning. That doesn't mean anything. Right? He starts going off on everybody. And it's understandable. He's paranoid. He's always been paranoid. And that's what he kept saying. It's all about trust. That whole intro of him with the calls, that's all a trust. He could have easily had his henchmen or other people screen people, right? Screen new entries. But no, it's him. He does it. Yeah, so just with the control. So anyway, he's going back and forth, and the whole plan that Morgan has is, listen, let me call Grace, get some people together, we can come in from the other end, and just take it from there. No. It's like, well, all right, well, maybe we could figure something out. Well, I have walkies, but they're in the armory, and they're down a flight. And then they take a look in the elevator shaft, because at this point they get attacked. Because the guy said, I'll give you an hour to come up with a plan to let them in, do that whole thing. Right, because that's what he was trying to do, get in, correct? Or was there something else?
Yeah, that's right? What the plan was.
It was just to get in. Right, it's like invade the castle. So all of a sudden, we hear more explosions going off, and they're shooting more of these walkers with explosives on them, and it's blowing up different parts, different floors, and it impacts the elevator shaft, and the elevator breaks and it falls. Mm-hmm. So they get on the phone, what's going on? And he says, well, I see the light from a scope of one of your guys, and it's JD Sr., who was up on the roof. And he was keeping an eye on them. So he sees it, and that's understandable. That makes perfect sense. You're right. I see this guy, he could snipe and take out Arnold. So he sees this threat, and he says, you know, you got to put that away. You know, no funny business. I was like, okay, fine. So he stops that. And so then he agrees with Morgan, but he's like, all right, this is the deal, though. He's like, I couldn't believe this. Because remember, at the same time, he's sick. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And he says, I'm going to go down there and get the walkies. And I'm going to bring the Mo with me. How does that even make sense?
Well, he did not trust Morgan to an extent. Now, he trusted Morgan enough to decide, you're going to come with me, but he wanted to have her there so that Morgan wouldn't try anything funny against him. At least that's what he was thinking in his head.
Yeah, it was weird because when we do see the setup, the plan is to go through the elevator shaft. It's to use the cable from the elevator shaft that's still there, and then to lower yourself down and go to the next level. It's like, how are you going to do this with a baby? And you're sick. So it doesn't make any sense. So then Morgan was like, no. I'll just go. You know, just let me go. It's like, no, I don't trust you. You got my baby. It was like, I'm going to come back. Just don't do anything. I missed this part. I watched it twice. I don't get it. Why did everybody leave him alone? Where did June go? Where did the henchmen go? It's just Strand with the baby and Morgan. I don't know what happened. Everybody disappeared.
I think they just wanted you to question whether or not they were going to be able to get along, if Morgan was going to turn his back on Strand at that particular moment. And also the whole reason of the baby being there is because we saw the scene when Strand was going down with the baby. something could have happened to the baby. The baby could have gotten snatched up by one of the walkers because there was still some walkers grabbing for both of them as he was descending. So I guess they just wanted some type of suspense.
Well, even that, but remember, right before after the second attack, and June was like, there's going to be injuries, I have to go down there. He's like, no one's leaving. But then in the following scene, everyone's gone. So I was like, okay, whatever. So Morgan goes down, he makes it to the next floor, and he's like, right now, lower the baby. And he's like, I don't know. And at this time, Strand is having like a heart-to-heart with this little baby. He's like, see me as your caretaker, and and he just starts talking to this baby. And so he's like, all right, fine. He's like, I'll lower the baby. And he lowers the baby, and yeah, like you mentioned, he's like, you see the hands reaching for it. I'm like, man, this baby's been through a lot. Definitely been through a lot. And at no point did I think this baby was just going to drop, because Strand was like, it's looking like he's about to let go of the rope, like he's going to fall out of it. But of course, that's not going to happen. So Morgan grabs Mo. She's safe. He's like, all right, I'm going to go. I'm going to do this whole thing. And Strand just fades out. And I thought he died. I was like, I honestly thought he died. I was like, this is it. This is how you kill him. This is how he dies. Like, they would have had something like that. Like, he did, only for the reason that he did a good deed. He died doing a good deed. It's like, he even told Morgan, he was like, I know you're not going to come back for me. You're just going to let me die. And Morgan didn't say anything. Morgan just unhooked Mo and just left. And he's like, well, this is how it goes. And that's it. But no, sure enough, he wakes up and June and everybody's there and they're all happy. It's like, oh yeah, we got you some medicine, and he's got the walkies. He called Grace. We're on the right path. Things are getting better. Okay, but here's the question, right here. This is where I paused, and I don't know if this is the same question you have. What happened to Arnold?
Yes, that is the question I had.
That is the question, right? What happened?
And that it was one thing that definitely frustrated me about this episode, because you introduce a new threat and then the threat seemingly disappears all of a sudden. Now, obviously, my guess is that Grace, they were able to scare them off, but there's no way that storyline is over, because they still have access to the walkers that they have. They're infected with the
they had all those infected ones, and with the catapult. Where did you move that? Did you leave it? And it's like, all right, we'll come back in an hour. Lunch break. I don't.
Yeah, that to me didn't make any sense, because they obviously, I think, they wanted to focus more on Strand and what was happening with him and Morgan, but the stuff happening outside is very important to overlook that. And again, we say before about them talking on this show multiple times with the time passages, and also the stuff about where they say something but they don't show it. It would have been good to see what was the resolution of what actually happened. But instead, we are, as a viewer, from Strand's point of view, when he passed out, we also passed out. And then when we woke up, it's the same time he woke up.
Like, one of the things, and we sort of passed through it, but he did get that painting, that portrait, and he didn't like it. And he had thrown it off. And that's one of the things I overlooked. I realized I brought it up a little bit, but I didn't go into it. But he got the painting, and it looked fine. I mean, he had a stern look and everything, but of course he didn't like it because it showed the real him. It shows how everyone sees him. That stern look, like he is the dictator. So he just chucked it off. Right, so if anybody's wondering if for some reason you forgot about that, but anyway, now it looks like, and I was like, oh, they're gonna flip on him. Now he's gonna be the good guy. They're gonna do one of those flip flops in wrestling terms. He's going from heel to babyface. I was like, oh no, because he was like, you know what? Thank you. You came back, and it's hard to trust people, and things are hard, and he just starts opening up, and Morgan was like, yeah, but there's good people out there you could let in, people that you can trust. And he was like, yeah, I know it. And I was like, oh, this is it. Now that he's no longer the bad guy. He's now because now they have a common enemy. It's the dudes out there, that are with the catapult. I was like, this makes perfect sense, but kind of quick. I don't know. What, you can tell everybody, oh, by the way, we're all friends now. And if you're Morgan, do you really trust anything that comes out of Strand's mouth at this point?
No.
No, you don't. But there was a turn of events, because once they shake hands on this, Strand looks down at his hand, and what I didn't see it. Did he see residue or something on his hand?
Yeah, yep, the same blue residue.
Yeah,
that
it was the same
the way
blue,
he got poisoned.
the same blue, and that was one of the same blue. And then we start thinking about it, and then they show a quick flash when they did the drinks. So he must have slipped something in his drink.
Yeah,
And
that's exactly what happened.
He was like, "It was you. You did it. You poisoned me. You tried it." And I'm like, and he was like, "You did that." And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, whoa, they actually had Morgan do something risky like this. I just, there's a lot of things that, I mean, we seen Morgan do a full 180 on his life when he was walking around with his staff, and yeah, I'm not out to kill anybody. I just hurt people, and the walkers he'll kill, but we're just talking about just regular people that he encounters. To next, I don't care. I'm killing everybody. If you're a threat, if you're threatening my friends, family, you're going down. Mm-hmm. So to see this, like, wow, he was right. He tried to kill Strand by poison. Mm-hmm. Did you see that? Did you even think that was a possibility?
Well, I was very surprised that Morgan was the one who was behind this, because when they had this whole thing about Strand said, yes, somebody poisoned me. I was very intrigued because I wanted to see who was going to end up being the person that did it. So when I saw that it was Morgan, I was very surprised by that because it just came out of left field. But yeah, I did take a minute to pause after I saw that because it's like, okay, Morgan, yeah, he's not really been as vicious as that's the first time I've seen him be that vicious in quite a while.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, but obviously that plan did not work entirely the way he wanted it to work.
No, it didn't. So then what happens? To the roof. To the roof. We're gonna chuck you off. So they get to the roof, and they're like, "This is it. How dare you?" and the whole thing. And he's going to chuck him off along with that portrait that's out there. Off you go. But then as they're trying to, because they're struggling, I don't know why. He's a smaller guy. Just, two guys, heave ho and off, but, whatever. So you see him slowly going over the roof, and then the phone rings. And Strand was like, "Wait, stop everything. Let's pick up the phone." Who is it? If you notice, at this point, not one person has mentioned anything about Arnold or the threat that was outside.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No one brings it up. They don't talk about it. We did get one little mention, and again, I guess I just forgot because I'm looking at my notes. I brushed over it. But when Wyndham was eventually wheeled himself down to that same area, he was no longer on the roof when Strand was pointing the sword and threatening. And he's like, "Did you do it because of your sister?" And he's like, "What? My sister was here." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And he turned her away. "Why would you do that?" So we know that he knows now that his sister is alive.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but the Arnold thing, I guess the only explanation that they give is that Morgan had said that Grace and the crew dispatched of, I guess they scared off them or whatever. I guess that was the only thing that we know about that group.
Well, that, and I think, and we'll get to it because it's coming closer toward the end of this episode, is that once he picks up the phone, it's Grace. She's at the phone booth area, and she says, "Hey, this is what's going on." And well, we're gonna throw him overboard. All right, well, I'm gonna say overboard, but off the building. This and that. We know his little plots. Like, let's work something out. And so the plan is that he does need her. Strand, remember, he wanted Grace to join with the crew that time when he found them at the submarine. Mm-hmm. So they make agreement. She's gonna go in there and help and stay with Mo, but Morgan is going to stay alive, and he's just banished. He's got to go. And they're like, "Show him to the exit." That's what he said, right? He's like, "Show him to the exit." I was like, okay. There we go. This is all right. So the next scene, we see it's Morgan. He's out in his whole getup, which is awesome getup with the hood and a gas mask. And it's nighttime and he's walking through. But he senses something and he knows something's out there. He's like, "Hey, whoever's there, come out. I don't want no trouble. Just come out." And everybody comes out, and They start lifting up their mask. It's Dwight, it's Sherry, and they're like, "Hey," and it's like, "Oh, okay, you guys are alive. Yeah, you're alive too." And he was like, "Oh, but you're with these guys." Now, this is where I had some concerns with this also. When he made it seem like these guys, when he was talking about the scavenger people, as if they were bad. It's like, well, we don't know if they're bad just yet. Because right now they're just against Strand. And technically, Morgan, you're against Strand also.
Yeah.
So let's say, let's say if Strand died, he got poisoned, he died. What do you think Morgan would have done regarding the guys outside? Would he pick up the phone and say, "Hey, listen, let's work something out. You can come in. I killed the dictator that was running this place. We can work something out." Do you think they would have been fine? Everything was smooth sailing between the two parties?
Wait, so repeat that again?
All right, so remember, if let's say Morgan was successful and Strand died, all right, that's it. He's dead. Now Morgan is in control. If he picked up the phone and he called Arnold back, do you think he still would want to have the fight with him, or do you think he would have just said, "All right, let's work something out. Come on in. This is our common enemy. We both don't like this guy, and I got rid of him."
Yeah.
You think they would have worked it out?
I think he would have been able to work something out for sure. Yeah,
because he likes doing it. He likes negotiating. We saw that last season.
Mm-hmm.
He's all about negotiating and trying to work out deals. So yeah, that's what I was thinking. But anyway, he sees that group as a bad guy though, like as the villains, I should say, because he was like, "Oh, you're with these people." He doesn't know much of them. He doesn't know, but still, it was just interesting for him to just label them that, because they were attacking someone that just tried to throw him off a roof. So
yeah,
and they were like, "No, it's not like that. We're not there." But and he's like, "Oh, your leader Arnold's like, no, it's she." Again, being real vague with this whole thing. Come on now, we know. Once he said it's a she, I knew. And they're like, "All right, you got to go see her." And then she comes out, and she's got the hood and the mask. And that's the other thing. It's safe, and I didn't believe this much, but I get it, because you want to see the actors' faces so they can do their acting.
yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, it's okay to take your mask off. The wind is blowing in another direction." I was like, "Yeah, but that's not how radiation works. It's still in the air. It's still in the soil. It's whatever. So she takes her mask off, and there we go. It's your lady there. I'm blanking on her name again. Why am I? Alicia. Holy crow. Yeah. So Alicia, they embrace. They're happy. All right, it's cool. I'm still trying to figure this out, though. Is this the crew that's from the bunker that Will had mentioned?
Yes.
This is the crew, right? All right. Because then he even said, he's like, "How did you get out of the bunker? And how did you do this and this and that?" He's got a bunch of questions. All he does get one answer. That's the one thing that the producer said that was incorrect. There is one answer, because she says that she's not part of that other group. Mm-hmm. She says, "Oh, Arnold, they're not part of us. They were, but they're no longer part of us. They're flying solo, so they're dealing with their own thing." And so it's like, "Oh, okay. So what's going on here? What's this?" And all of a sudden, they're like, "Hey, we got some walkers coming." And so, all right, whatever. Walkers are everywhere. That's what they do, right? They walk. Mm-hmm. And when they approach, they take a look and they see, well, at least Morgan does, that these are the ones with the explosives. And he's like, he screams. It's funny because he screams, "Don't shoot!" And that's when they all shoot. It's like, I could understand if they were ready, someone saying, "Ready, aim," and then he said it. But no, it was silent until he says, "Don't shoot," and everyone shoots. They're like, "What? Shoot?" And so they all shoot. They blow these things up. It causes, of course, a big explosion. But what does that do? That then draws in, as you can hear the grunts coming, all these other walkers. And now they have to move fast. They have to get out. Again, questions of the distance. How far? Is this going to be the same amount of walkers that are surrounding the tower that are coming? Or are these the walkers that... Because clearly they're the ones that are strapped with the explosives. Does that mean that the scavenger guys, are they around? Was this a trap? Was this something that they sent over? Oh, I hear banging. What's that? You hear that?
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what the... I'm not sure what that means. I guess we'll have to wait and see what actually happens.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was all right. It was all right. The ending was like, whatever. Well, I hope we get some more answers and we find out what's going on. I really want to find out what happened with Will. The whole story with Will. His connection and what was going on with him.
Well, we will get that answer next week, because the next week's episode is all about Alicia, and it's supposed to follow what happened with her from when she was in that bunker to now, which is why I think that probably should have been the first episode of the season, not the mid-season finale.
Yeah. Well, especially I'm sort of hyped for it, but then I'm not, only because I saw how they handled the CRM episode, and that we had high hopes for that one. We thought, this is it. This is going to be great. They're going to start talking about the CRM, and we're going to get more insight on that group and what they have to do. And no, they just brushed it off. It's like, oh, no, the pilot that helped us, she went rogue afterwards. So she didn't tell us anything about that group. So we don't know what's going on in the outside world. So that's why it's like, with this, I'm not sure what we'll see from it. I'm sure we know some info, because what Will had talked about the, what was it, congressman that was there, and they're the ones that let her out, and she was the congressman's right hand or something like that. How did she get to that position? I don't know. But Will made it seem like he had a romantic relationship with her, right? It made it seem like that, but who knows?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Or he thinks, or who knows? Maybe it's not. Maybe he wanted to. Maybe she had something going on with the congressman, and he was like, "No, I love you. I want to be with you." And she was like, "No, I'm sorry, I can't." He's like, "Then I'm leaving," and he bounced. Like, maybe it's something like that. Maybe he did something horrible to them that made them have to all leave. Maybe he left the door open. You know what I mean? That's all it really takes. Make a lot of noise and leave the door open, and you got a bunch of walkers coming in, and so who knows? I just hope that gets answered along with a few other questions, but we'll see. So overall, right at the end, before we go toward the end of this, he tells Strand tells somebody to go and retrieve the painting. That was one of the other things that he told right before he told Morgan to go downstairs. And the funny part is, I didn't expect to see that image again. I didn't expect to see the portrait, I should say. And somebody went down there and picked this thing up, and it's all gooey and all messed up at half his face, and he's like, "No, this is me. I love this. I don't want it cleaned up. This is who I am." So he's embracing the fact that he looks like an evil dictator, and he really does. And now that's his role. So, I don't know. And then the fact that even before that, when June had mentioned, it was like, "Oh, don't use my medical practice against me or as a bargaining chip." I mean, come on now. What are you doing there? You're under his roof. So you gotta... What, you're gonna say no? Then what? Then he'll just kick you out. So that was pointless. But overall, there were some good moments, some bad moments. I'm really curious to see where this is gonna go, because is Strand considered the villain at this point? Is he still the villain, or is it this Duke?
Yes.
You think so?
He is the villain, and the only way, because of how this episode turned out, because we already know one thing that wasn't mentioned is that Grace made a deal with him where he would spare Morgan, but she has to stay there with the baby.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, and he said he wants
so
to be, yeah.
we already know that this has to end now, and this is why we will have to see if that actor is leaving the show, because there's no way that Morgan is going to have to come back there, because he needs to get back to Mo and Grace. So the end game is that somebody has to get taken out. So I would expect this might be his last season for Strand.
We can probably look that up. I don't know. Anything is possible. But one of the other things that during that time with the painting, he's like, he tells his little henchman buddy to go get the baby. And it's like, "I don't know you like kids." It's like, "Well, the baby needs to know her new father." And it's like, whoa, I guess he wants to raise this child. From the few minutes that he had holding her when Morgan was being lowered down, he's now determined that he wants to be a father. And he wants to keep this baby. I think that was the other reason why he was willing to make that deal with Grace. Because he was like, well, not only do I get Grace, but I get this baby. And I want to be a father. I don't know. Something about that whole thing doesn't work well with me. I just don't see it. I can't see him. I feel like it was too much of a rush to put him in this position without more info on how he was able to. It's a big deal to run a community. It takes a lot of time, and it just, for the amount of, from the way that they're describing the process. Remember, there was only two people it was only him. There's actually one person. When he got there, it was just that henchman dude that lived there by himself, remember? So it wasn't like he had a bunch of people that he could just convince. How did you convince every single person to work with you and to just make you the leader? It just, I don't. It was too rushed. Maybe if they would have thrown in a few more lines, like let's say, oh, so how did you get all these soldiers, I should say, to help organize all these are people from the town, from Junestown? Because remember, I was the captain over there, which he was. Remember that whole thing? I was like, oh, okay, that would make sense. But he doesn't, and that didn't happen. And from what we know, none of those people survived. The Rangers, they're all gone. So,
yep.
None of these people that are with him are Rangers. These are just stragglers. And just talking back at the early part when he's doing the whole interview process, the little henchman guy tells him, like, hey, there's plenty of people we do need. And he's like, yeah, they may have skills we need, but I just get a bad feeling. I don't trust them. So that's why I do. I go with my gut. So it doesn't matter if we need them or not. So, I don't know. I still am up in the air about the whole situation with Strand. And with this other group, again, where did they go? Did Alicia's group scare them off? Did Grace's group scare them off? How many are in Grace's? It's just, it got real messy toward the end. That last part got real messy for me. And this is the second time that Strand could have just killed Morgan. He could have killed him before with the Sarah situation at the phone booth. Remember? When he came over and he saw he was there, it was like, oh, because they were just threatening each other the episode before. Like, I'm going to kill you if I see you. Oh, yeah, get ready. Well, it happened. Face, that didn't happen. And then now with this situation. So, I don't see either Morgan dying at all. I think Morgan, as long as this show is going on, Morgan will be part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with Strand loves the act. I forgot his name, drawing a blank. He's a great actor. We've seen him in a bunch of other works. He's even directed a few of the episodes. He loves this show. He loves it. He's enjoying it. He's getting a kick out of it. It's character acting, and this is fun. This is fun for him. So, do I want him to die? Not really, but this character, where else do you go? Because right now, this seems like so... If let's say you were to have a friend or somebody who's never watched Walking Dead, just fear Walking Dead, haven't watched some of the episodes from first season, and then, like 2 or 3, and then say, okay, now stop. Now let's jump to the current episode. They would be like, how the hell did that happen? This is like a completely different person. What is going on? So you would think a mental breakdown, and this guy went crazy, and this is it. So,
yeah.
Oh, well, overall, it's still entertaining. I want to see where it's going. They still progress the story, like I mentioned earlier. There's a lot of progression. We got to see what's going on with the other group and Alicia. Finally, we get to see her and her group. We're going to get some answers, not in this episode, next episode. But there could have been a little more with just the development of the Strand situation. It would have been great if he would have stayed sick for a while. Just sick and not sure. Like, oh, is he going to die? Is he going to make it? And have him coughing up blood everywhere. Something. And then that way, just have that suspense. Like, what is happening? Maybe an episode or two. Maybe leading up to the mid-season. And then after the mid-season break, we find out that the medication that June gave him, the antibiotics, whatever, worked. And he's going to live. But at least we were like, oh, man, is he going to die? Because there was only a few minutes, if you think about it, a few minutes that we were concerned that, like, oh, wow, could he actually go? And nope, he's fine. It's okay. It's all good.
Yeah, so that means that next week, is whatever the next episode is, and something major will probably happen.
Yeah, episode
for the
8.
mid-season break.
Something has to happen. I'm trying to think what could actually happen. Because this thing, Alicia didn't say anything about Strand. We know she has to hate him because of the whole situation. But she also they had a relationship. They were friends.
Yeah. I think those two things are connected, and maybe she's going to need Morgan's help to take out Strand or something to that effect. We still also don't know who Padre is, and the episode next week is titled Padre. So hopefully we will get some answers with all of this stuff sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because the only thing we do know is it seems that Padre is a location. They're like, oh, we have to get to Padre. And unless it is a person. I don't know. But they make it seem like it's a location, like a code name. Like a code word. It's like, oh, we got to get to Padre. It's like, okay. The one thing that I hope doesn't happen is that we see all this circling, all this fighting, whether it's Alicia's group fighting the scavengers, and let's say they defeat them, and they finally get to the tower, clear that area, that they don't kill Strand, but they put him in a cell, similar to the bunker situation, and they leave him there. They're like, all right, you're going to stay here for a while. And then next season, they do a time jump, and Mo is a teenager or close to a preteen, that type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only direction I can see them really going if they decide to stick around, like all the actors decide to stick around. I don't really want that. We've seen that on Walking Dead already. That was part of the comic where they did the time jump and Negan was locked in the cell. Do you think they would go down that road again, but with Strand being locked up?
No, they don't need to do that. They did a time jump last season with Grace, so I definitely don't want to see that again. If it is the goal, the storyline is supposed to end with Strand going down, then that's what has to happen, unless they go some other way to explain how he survives for another season. But we'll see.
The big elephant in the room is that it's the area, the location. Common sense says just leave. Why are you doing all this? Just leave. This area is contaminated. So that's the other issue I have with this, is that you're all fighting about this one location, this tower, and dealing with all this, even the scavengers. Well, why don't you just leave? Because this land is contaminated. It's horrible. What are you going to do? And again, if they did the time jump, they could then say everything's been cleared up. And that's if they decide to stay in this location. One of the things I loved about Fear is that they move around a lot. Every season is pretty much in another location. So I don't see them staying next season, season 8, in the same area, because then you're going to deal with the same situation with the contaminated walkers and walking around with gas masks. It's cool and all. I like that. That's one of the things I like. But it's out of character if they decide to stay another season dealing with all of that. So they would have to move. But how do you move around? I thought maybe they would use the whole CRM with the helicopter and use that as an out. As, all right, well, we have this helicopter. We know where the CRM, one of their base locations are. So we're just going to send a group over there and see if we can work out something. Maybe that is a safe haven. And who knows? Maybe that's Padre. Maybe Padre is linked to the CRM. And that is one of the outposts. Because remember, we know from World Beyond, from the little information that we did get that's connected to the universe of Walking Dead, is that there are six CRM locations across the United States. So, all right, people, that was it. That was Fear the Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 7, The Portrait. Yeah, it's a meh. It was all right. Some good, some bad. But it's leading up to the big one, which is the mid-season next week. That better deliver. That's all I'm saying. That better deliver. Right? It's got to. This is it.
Well, we'll see about that. This episode is okay. I feel because of the stuff that we discussed, the issues, I think the issues outweigh the positive stuff. So that's why I think it's just okay. We'll see where they go from here. But I really want them to stop doing this stuff with, well, this happened, but we're going to just tell you about it instead of showing it to you. Or all of this time has passed, but as a viewer, you have no idea how much time has passed. They need to stop doing that. But we'll see. It's going to continue, though. But hey, we'll find out where they go from here.
We will. All right, people. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll be back next week. And yeah, have a great Thanksgiving. Peace.